phone buzzed on Wine's nightstand for the 5th time. Her heart raced, but anger burned stronger than worry. She snatched it up and snapped, "What do you want now, 𝐻𝐭?" On the other hand, a weary breath echoed, 𝐻𝐭's voice slow and rough. "Until when are we gonna fight like this, Wine?" Her jaw tightened, anger reigniting. "Maybe until your mother learns how to keep her mouth shut. You think I'm just gonna sit there and smile while she insults my family?" Wine, his side voice thick with exhaustion. "You're getting to it again. My mom shouldn't have said those things, yes. But your mother also keeps digging into the past. You know how it triggers her," she said bitterly. "Oh, so now you're justifying your mother's behavior." 𝐻𝐿's voice rose slightly. "I'm not justifying anything. I'm just saying both of them were wrong. Don't twist my words." "Of course, because your precious mother can never be at fault," he frustratedly gritted out. "God, why do you always think I choose sides? Haven't I always stood up for you? Even last night I did. But you still couldn't stop her better from mocking my mother in front of everyone. Because I was trying to handle it without another scene. Why do we always have to fight because of them? Why can't you just cut him off?" Her voice trembled. "Because they never stop, and maybe our parents were right, 𝐻𝐭. Maybe we really are toxic." The line went silent. Only the sound of their breathing filled the gap between them. After a long pause, 𝐻𝐭's quiet voice came through, wounded and fragile. "You really think so?" Wine froze, her chest tightening instantly. She wanted to take it back, but before she could speak, the call ended. She stood motionless, staring at her reflection in the dark phone screen. Then with a groan she threw it on the bed and sank down beside it, hands gripping her hair. She muttered to herself, "Why did I say that, God? Why did I say that?" The day dragged like a nightmare. Wine stayed locked in her room, curtains drawn, ignoring the world. Her siblings knocked, calling her out for lunch, but she murmured an excuse. When her mother's gentle voice called through the door, Wine snapped, her voice breaking, "Please, Mom, just leave me alone." The silence that followed was heavy. She didn't eat, didn't speak, didn't cry until night fell. For the first time in years, she didn't call 𝐻𝐭 before bed. Next morning, Wine woke with swollen eyes and ache in her chest she couldn't shake. Something felt wrong, anxious, heavy. She grabbed her phone. No message, no missed call, nothing. From her balcony, she peeked toward the 𝐾𝐿 house. His car was parked, curtains drawn. Her heart thudded. He was home, but why wasn't he texting her back? Unable to take the silence, she dialed his number. The ringing stretched unbearably long. Just as she was about to hang up, he answered but said nothing. Wine softly said, "Hey." A quiet hum came from the other end. How are you?" There was a pause, a faint rustle. Then his voice rough and hollow. "I'm fine, don't worry." Before she could reply, he hung up. Her heart clenched painfully. "He only sounds like that when he's hurting," she said, frozen tears streaming silently as flashes of their past rolled before her eyes. Mrs. Lee's furious voice echoed through the house. "You'll never see that boy again." Wine whimpered as her mother struck that thick stick onto her palms again. Later that night, the rain poured outside her window. When she heard the faint tap, 𝐻𝐭 climbed in, soaked to the bone, his eyes blazing with anger and fear. He moved close to her, his voice trembled as he held her swollen, bruised hands. "How could she hate you like that, Wine?" Wine sniffled, holding back her hiccups. He cupped her face gently, wiping her tears with trembling thumbs. "One day I'll take you away from all this. You'll never cry again, not because of them." She nodded between hiccups as he pressed his forehead to hers, whispering promises that kept them alive through every storm. Mrs. Kim always punished him endlessly for defying her, but nothing ever stopped him from loving her. The past faded and Wine's chest constricted. "No," she whispered to herself, standing abruptly. "I can't let this be it, not us." She grabbed her sweater, ran downstairs, and ignored her mother's questions as she rushed out. Her feet carried her straight to the Kim residence. The front door was slightly ajar. Her stomach dropped. "𝐻𝐭," she called softly, stepping in. The house was quiet, too quiet. She climbed the stairs. The moment she opened his bedroom door, her heart shattered. 𝐻𝐿 sat slouched on the edge of the bed, his skin pale, eyes red and glossy. His hair was disheveled, dark circles creasing the skin beneath his eyes. Mrs. Kim stood by the dresser, voice sharp and cruel. "Why are you not eating? At least take the medicines." "She broke your heart. Don't do this to yourself because of her. That girl has always been trouble, just like her mother." 𝐻𝐭 weakly interrupted her. "Mom, please stop. I just don't feel like eating anything. It has nothing to do with Wine." "No, you need to see the truth, 𝐻𝐭. She's turning you against your own family." Before he could respond, Wine's voice cut through the room, trembling but fierce. "What happened to?" Both of them turned. Mrs. Kim's lips curled as she mockingly said, "Oh, you finally remembered him after breaking his heart." Wine ignored her completely, rushing to 𝐻𝐭's side. Her hands cupped his face, feeling the heat radiating off him. She asked, panicked, "You're burning up. Why didn't you tell me? Have you seen a doctor?" He hoarsely whispered, "I'm fine, Wine, just tired." "Tired? You look like you're about to collapse." She glanced at the bedside table, a tray of untouched food and unopened medicine. Her eyes welled up. Mrs. Kim's cough. "Maybe if you didn't fight because of your mother, he wouldn't be sick today." That was the final straw. 𝐻𝐭 suddenly snapped. "Enough, Mom, can't you please keep quiet for a while?" Wine finished at his loud voice. Mrs. Kim blinked, startled. He rarely raised his voice. "If you can't say anything nice, please leave," he said, glaring weakly. Mrs. Kim's lips tightened, but she snorted and left the room, muttering under her breath. Wine exhaled shakily, turning back to him. 𝐻𝐭 gently squeezed Wine's hand. "Didn't mean to scare you." "You didn't, you just..." She swallowed hard. "You shouldn't hide things like this from me." He didn't reply, only watched her with heavy eyes as she helped him sit back against the headboard and softly said, "Eat something first." When he opened his mouth to protest, she cut him off. "Don't even try. You have already worried me enough." 𝐻𝐭 managed a faint smile as she fed him spoon by spoon. Her eyes glistening with tears. After giving him his medicine, she fixed his pillow and brushed back his damp hair. He stared at her softly and quietly said, "You don't have to stay. You'll get tired. Fine lowered her eyes, whispering, are you so fed up with me that you don't want my presence even now? His throat tightened. He wanted to say no, to tell her she's the only thing he wants near him, but he stayed silent, watching her quietly arrange his room, tidy the tree, check his temperature as his lids grew heavy. She sat beside him, brushing her fingers through his hair until he drifted to sleep for the first time in 2 days. The silence between them didn't sting. It just ached softly, like a wound learning to heal. 2 days later. 2 days had passed since that night, and in those 2 days, wine had become a quiet storm of care. Every morning she showed up at Thane's house before the sun could fully rise, carrying warm soup, extra towels, and that determined look that made his heart twist painfully. She cooked his meals, cleaned his room until it gleamed, washed his clothes by hand when the maid offered to do it, and even scrubbed his washroom spotless. Every time she picked up something clean, still weak, still pale, would drag himself out of bed and sigh, "Wine, stop please, you don't have to do all this." She would look up from the laundry basket or the mop with furrowed brows and say firmly, "And who's going to do it if not me, the maid?" He softly grumbled, "That's literally her job, love. She doesn't know where you keep your sweaters." He would groan, rub his temples and mutter, "You're impossible," and she would just shrug, continuing her work, murmuring, "You are still sick, don't move around." Even when he weakly tried to call the maid, she would snatch the phone from his hand with a glare sharp enough to make him shut up. At night she stayed until he was asleep, brushing his hair off his forehead gently, her fingers lingering over his temple. She whispered softly against his skin, "Don't get sick because of me again, Thay," before quietly tucking him in and turning off the lights. By the third morning, Thay felt like himself again. His fever was gone, color had returned to his cheeks, but Wine's hadn't. He noticed her silence these past 2 days, the way she moved around his room wordlessly. No teasing, no laughter, just quiet care and blank eyes that looked like they carried guilt instead of light. As she checked his temperature again, Thane's eyes didn't move away from her, not for a second. Normal again, she noted jotting something in a small notepad she carried. "You're fine now." He smiled faintly. "Yes, I don't need my nose anymore." She hummed without humor, just arranging his medicine bottles on the tray. Just then her phone buzzed on the table. She sighed and picked it up, speaking softly into the receiver. "Hello, yes." Thane watched her closely, his head tilted slightly. Her voice was calm but faint. "I know I have already taken 3 days off. I'll be back tomorrow." When she entered the call, he spoke gently. "You shouldn't have taken leave for me. I wanted to." The calm in her tone made him frown. When she started to stand, Thane caught her wrist gently and tugged her closer. His voice was soft but firm. "Why are you so quiet lately?" She shook her head, eyes avoiding his. "I'm not." He brought her hand to his lips, brushing a slow kiss over her knuckles. His breath was warm against her skin as he murmured, "You are." Her lower lip trembled. "Sorry," she whispered, suddenly voice cracking. "I hurt you more than you figured it." Thane's heart twisted before he could say anything. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She covered her face, sobbing softly. He instantly pulled her into his arms, cradling her head against his chest. Hey, no, don't cry." But she hiccuped, her words broken. "I said such cruel things, Thane. I shouldn't have. I didn't mean them." He pressed his cheek to her hair, his voice low and strained. "You did hurt me, Wine." Those words, they did. Her sobs grew louder and his arms tightened protectively as he whispered in a trembling voice, "Doesn't my Wine know? I can't breathe without her." That broke her completely. She clung to him like she could anchor herself from drowning. He pulled away slightly, cupping her face as his thumbs wiped away her tears and pleaded softly, "Your tears fall on my heart and they burn it into ashes, Wine." Her lips quivered as she whispered between hiccups, "I didn't mean those words. I just lash out when I'm scared of losing you." He leaned forward until their foreheads touched. His breath mingled with hers and he whispered, "You'll never lose me." Wine shook her head faintly. "The way our mothers are acting these days, it scares me." He kissed her forehead, murmuring against her skin, "Everything will be fine soon, I promise." "How?" "Just trust me. Don't let them come between us, Wine. Once we get married, no one can separate us. It will be just you and me." Her tears slowed and she sniffed, softly nodding, "You and me always." He smiled faintly, pressing a long loving kiss to her forehead. Then, to lighten her mood, he murmured teasingly, "You look adorable when you cry. You know that." Her eyes widened and she smiled his chest slightly. "You are unbelievable." He chuckled. "What? It's true." "Shut up." "No, really. I'm thinking I might get sick again if this is how you'll take care of me." "Same," she exclaimed, hitting his arm again, but he only laughed harder. Her lips twitched despite herself. "You're impossible, and you love me for it," she said with a mock smugness. "Debatable." He grinned, leaning closer. Not for long. Soon both their laughter filled the room, soft, warm, healing. He wrapped his arm around her waist, pulling her against him as he kissed her temple. They sat like that for a while, their breath sinking. The peace was intoxicating until one suddenly pulled back, her expression shifting into a glare, making him confused. What happened now?" She scooted a little away, crossing her arms. "I'm still mad at you." He blinked. "What did I do this time?" Her lips trembled again. "You hung up on me that night." Realization hit him, he sighed, scooting closer. "Wine, But she looked away, lips pressed tightly. "I'm sorry, okay, I was stupid. I shouldn't have done that." She huffed. "You think sorry fixes everything?" He rested his chin on her shoulder from behind, pouting. "Maybe, if I say it really sweetly." She didn't reply. He groaned dramatically, pulling away, then reached for the bedside table and grabbed something. Stretching his hand forward, he said coolly, "Fine, I'll bribe you. Chocolate." She turned her head unimpressed. "I don't want it." He raised his brows. "You sure?" "I'm gonna eat it then." She rolled her eyes. Go ahead. He unwrapped the bar and took a big bite, slowly, deliberately. Her eyes flickered toward him from the corner. He kept eating, pretending not to notice. Within minutes, it was gone. She turned fully toward him, eyes wide. You ate it. He licked his lips. Yeah, it was good. Her voice broke. That was mine. He blinked, trying not to laugh. I have more love, but her lower lip wobbled as she murmured, I only wanted that one. For a second he was speechless, then something soft flickered in his eyes. His voice dropped into a new whisper. If you want that one, then fine. Before she could even react, he grabbed her gently by the back of her neck and crushed his lips against her. Wine glass softly, his warmth stealing her breath as his mouth moved against hers. Deep, slow, and desperate, his hands slid around her waist, pulling her closer. The soft, helpless sound escaped her throat as her fingers tangled into his hair. The kiss deepened until both of them were breathless. She pulled back, face flushed, eyes lowered shyly. 𝐤𝐿 brushing over her swollen lips. Now that one's yours. She smiled his chest slightly, a shy smile, spreading across her face before she buried it in his neck. He laughed softly, wrapping his arms around her, his fingers tracing slow circles on her back. Leaning back against the couch, he adjusted her on his lap as she relaxed against him and murmured against her hair. It's been 9 years and I still can't go a day without touching you. Mine smiled shyly against his skin, and I still blush like we are in high school. He grinned, pressing his lips to her hair. Yes, we are both hopeless then. Hopelessly in love. He chuckled quietly, pulling her closer. You and me, always. A few days later. The week had been long. Wine had barely looked up from her files or laptop for days. Her office slowly becoming a second home, yet even while buried under work, she couldn't ignore what was happening around her house. Muffled arguments behind closed doors, her mother's voice breaking through tears, her father's heavy sighs as if he was carrying something far heavier than a day's fatigue. She sat on her bed that evening, hugging her knees as she dialed him. The moment his voice came through low and lazy with a familiar warmth, her chest loosened. Hey, sweetheart, you sound tired. Maybe I am. Mom and Dad have been arguing again. I heard something about a divorce. It doesn't sound like a joke. There was a quiet pause. She could almost imagine his expression, brows furrowing, lips pressing together in a thought. My parents too. They have been different lately. Fighting, being weirdly quiet after. Wine exhaled slowly, pressing her forehead against her knees. It scares me. I don't want our families to. Hey, listen to me. She could hear the smile in his voice. You're worrying too much again, aren't you? I told you let the old people handle their drama. We have our own little universe. She laughed softly, brushing a stray tear away. You always say that like we are invincible. We are, haven't you noticed? You forget the world every time you are with me. Her lips curled up, cheeks warming at how true that was. No matter how chaotic things became, he had this maddening ability to pull her back into peace, or rather into him. Today it was weekend when the unexpected call came. Dinner at the Kim residence, both families together. Wine was sure her mother would refuse, throw a tantrum, start another argument, but instead, she saw her getting ready quietly, wearing her favorite silk shawl. Wine just stared speechless. The sight alone was more shocking than the dinner invitation. At the door, her father placed a comforting arm around her shoulder. Don't worry about your mother, I'll handle her tonight. There'll be no obstacles for your marriage, my dear. His words sang deep, warmth flooding Wine's chest as tears filled her eyes. She smiled faintly, blinking them away as they reached the familiar gates of the Kim mansion. Mr. Kim greeted them first, all smiles and open arms, then stood beside him, breathtaking as always. His gaze finding her instantly, there was no mistaking the way his eyes softened. Then darkened slightly when she smiled back. But what truly stunned everyone was the sight of Mrs. Kim and Mrs. Lee greeting each other politely, even exchanging a few careful forced smiles. Wine nearly dropped her clutch. She glanced at her father, who only grinned knowingly and patted her shoulder, before pressing a soft kiss to her temple. Across the hall, Kim's gaze was still fixed on her, steady, intense, the kind that made her skin feel like fire. When their siblings led them upstairs to hang out, Wine followed deliberately, avoiding his eyes. She could practically feel his irritation trailing behind her like heat. Later, while the maids prepared the dining table, Wine slipped into the kitchen to help, but the moment she reached for a tray, a familiar hand caught her wrist. Before she could even turn, Thane pulled her closer, his face warm against her ear as he tugged her hair behind it and muttered in a low, dark voice, You have been avoiding me enough, haven't you? Her pulse spiked. Someone might come. They won't, their work's done. He pinned her gently against the counter, casing her between his arms. The soft thud of his watch against the marble echoed through the still kitchen. She bit her lip, feeling her heartbeat drumming in her throat as his eyes pointed to hers. She whispered, What are you doing? Thinking. He leaned in until their noses brushed. About how to punish you for ignoring me. She could barely breathe, fingers clutching his shirt as she smiled faintly. You and your punishments, he raised an eyebrow. You don't seem too scared, she smiled shyly, lowering her gaze, the tiniest movement of her fingers against the buttons of his shirt making him smirk. He tilted her chin up with a hand, his thumb brushing the corner of her lips before he murmured voice husky. You shouldn't tease me like that, sweetheart. I forget where we are. Before she could reply, he kissed her. Slow at first, then deeper, desperate. Her knees almost gave way as he pulled her in by the waist, his lips moving over hers with hungry precision. Every touch felt like home, every breath shade between them heavy with everything unsaid. When they finally parted, foreheads resting together, their breaths mingled, he softly said, You make me lose my mind, you know that. One smiled breathlessly. You are too clingy today. I'm always like this, you just never stop me. She giggled, nuzzling into his chest, his hands slid to the back of her head, fingers threading into her hair as he whispered against her temple. I wish I could hide you in my heart and never let anyone see you. Tears sprinkled behind her smile. Even after all these years, he still loved her with the same reckless devotion. Just then his sister's voice echoed from the hallway. 𝐤𝐞𝐿, come out, we are starting dinner. Sam groaned dramatically, rolling his eyes. Calming, he muttered dryly, earning a laugh from wine as they walked out. She whispered, how are our mothers so peaceful today? He wrapped an arm around her waist. Because I may have talked to our fathers. She frowned. Talked about what? He smirked, saying, let's just say they might have used the word divorce to get the moms to behave. She stopped mid-step, gasping as they reached the dining hall. He only grinned and leaning to kiss her nose, the playful shameless gesture making her blush furiously. She stayed there watching. Let them. They should know I'm hopelessly in love with their daughter. The eldest talked like old friends, laughter echoing across the table. Meanwhile, Wine and 𝐤𝐞 existed in their own little bubble, stealing bites from each other's plates, brushing fingers under the table, whispering things that made Wine blush and 𝐤𝐞 grin like a thief caught in the act. Every touch, every glance was loaded with quiet electricity, a language only they understood. By the time the night ended, the house was calm and Wine's heart was impossibly full. She could still feel the ghost of 𝐤𝐞's touch on her hand as he walked her to the door, his voice soft in the night air. No matter what happens around us, it will always be you and me, okay? Wine smiled, her hand finding his cheek. Always. He kissed her knuckles tenderly, the promise shining in his eyes, more real than any oath. Time skip. The weeks before the wedding had been a blur of silk, flowers and laughter. Wine and 𝐤𝐞 had taken charge of their own shopping, leaving the rest of the chaos to their friends and parents. Every outing turned into a date, every boutique, a playground for 𝐤𝐞's shameless teasing. You'd look perfect in this one. He held up a dress clearly 2 sizes too small. Grin mischiefs. 𝐤𝐞, what? I like when you get mad, it's cute. She would roll her eyes, stomp ahead, and he would trail behind her like an affectionate shadow, whispering sweet nothings under her lips quivered into a reluctant smile. He would sneak kisses when she tried on jewelry, wrap an arm around her waist in the middle of the store, and complain dramatically whenever she shooed him away. By the time their lists were complete, Wine's closet looked like a dream, and 𝐤𝐞's phone was filled with pictures of her, laughing, pouting, blushing. You realize you have made me obsessed since high school. She giggled and teased. You have always been obsessed. Still am. Can't help it. The morning of the ceremony dawned bright and soft. Sunlight spilling through lace curtains. Both of them were bundles of nose. 𝐤𝐞 placing Wine's hand trembling as her makeup artist fixed the final touches. Yet under the nervous laughter lay a bubble joy that neither could contain. When the doors opened and Wine stepped into the aisle, everything fell silent for 𝐤𝐞. His breath hitched. The world blurred until it was just her, his girl glowing in white, eyes shimmering with the same love he had known since they were teenagers. Mr. Lee's proud steps led her closer, and when he placed her hand in 𝐤𝐿's, the boy who once shyly held her pinky behind school corridors finally felt whole. They stood before the officiant, hands trembling, smiles trembling harder as he began the vows. The exchange of words laced with years of laughter, fights, late-night calls, and stolen kisses. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the hall erupted in cheers. 𝐤𝐿 pulled her close, voice thick with emotion. I fell in love with you when we were kids. I'll love you until we are old and grey. Before anyone could react, he kissed her long, deep, and filled with everything he had ever felt for her, while responded softly, fingers curling in his hair, tears sliding down her cheeks as everyone clapped and laughed. Even their mothers once rival smiled through tears. Hours later, after endless photos and laughter, 𝐤𝐿 still hadn't let go of her hand. He kissed it every few minutes, leaned to whisper compliments that made her blush until her cheeks hurt. When the crowd finally thinned and they got into the car, silence settled, warm, contented silence. Wine tilted her head. This isn't the way home. It's not. He smiled sideways, eyes glinting. Then where? You'll see soon. She wanted to protest, but the way he looked at her, calm, loving, certain, made her heart stutter instead. They arrived at a quiet apartment building, leaving 𝐤𝐿 let her up, hand firm around hers, until he opened a door to an apartment. Wine gasped, her favorite flowers, gardenias, and lavender perfumed the air. On the walls hung framed photographs, 2 mischievous high schoolers in uniform. Their first date, their graduation, every milestone between then and now. She turned to him, eyes shimmering. You did all this. He kissed her temple, smiling. You once said you wanted a place that was just ours, so I made it happen. Tears spilled before she could stop. Then she threw her arms around him, voice muffled against his chest. You still remember everything. He kissed the top of her head, every scar, every smile. I memorized you. She laughed through her tears. You're impossible. You're like Mrs. Kim. Wine sniffed, teasing. You're like Mr. Kim. He chuckled, hands tracing soothing patterns on her back as he walked her to the bedroom. The air thick and soft, charged with the quiet intimacy of 2 people who had waited a lifetime for this night. He teased in a low, playful voice. I think I'll prove that tonight. Her cheeks burned. She sweated his chest, muttering, where's my gift, you show off? On the nightstand. She turned instinctively, but before she could look, he cupped the back of her neck and kissed her. It wasn't rushed, just deep enough to make her knees tremble. The kiss lingered, growing slower, heavier, filled with the unspoken relief of finally being home. When he pulled away, both were breathless, smiling like fools. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, whispering, stay still. He helped her sit, carefully removing her jewelry one by one, the earrings, the necklace, each pin from her hair, his fingers tender, reverent. She was silently, heart hammering as he set each piece aside. He dropped his coat and loosened his tie, the quiet sound of fabric, the only thing between them. Then he bent, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. Wine cupped his face, eyes glistening. Thank you for everything. I love you. He smiled, saying, I know I love you more. She leaned up and kissed him again, slower this time, the world outside fading until it was only the rhythm of their hearts and the gentle hum of the lights above them. The kiss deepened, not hurried, but inevitable. Hands wandering only far enough to say I'm yours. Their laughter melted into whispers and soft sighs. Every moment laced with the kind of closeness that could only come from years of loving the same soul. The rest of the night belonged to them alone. Two hearts finally at peace, their love sealed in quiet, wordless devotion. The next morning, the first morning of their married life, began in perfect, peaceful chaos. Wine light cooled against Theon's chest, draped over him like a soft warm blanket, wearing only his oversized shirt. Her cheek rested right over his heartbeat, her breath feathering against his skin. Theon woke first. His eyes slowly opened, and the moment he saw her, his whole face melted into a smile so tender, it could have lit the entire world. This was why he fought his mother, why he argued, risked everything, why he would do it again 1,000 times, fought this for her, sleeping in his arms as if she belonged there forever. He tilted his head slightly and pressed a long kiss on the top of her head, fingers slipping gently through her messy hair. She didn't move, sleeping like an angel who refused to be disturbed. Minutes passed. Theon lay quietly staring at the ceiling with the softest smile, listening to her slow breaths, occasionally peeking at her peaceful face. Then he glanced at the wall clock, 12:37 p.m. Baby? Nothing. He shook her gently. Wine, wake up. Not even a twitch. He sighed amused, brushing stray strands from her cheek. His thumb stroked her skin before he poked her cheek just once. She frowned in her sleep. Theon's smile widened. He grabbed the ends of her hair and brushed them lightly over her nose. She scrunched her nose like a kitten. He did it again. This time Wine slapped his hand away on his stick and rolled onto her other side. Theon gasped dramatically. Did you just hit me? Your husband on our first morning. No answer. He wrapped an arm around her waist and pulled her back against his chest. Then he blew softly into her ear. Wine flinched, hand flying back blindly, and slapped his face smack. Theon froze. Wine croakily mumbled into the pillow. Told you, don't disturb. Theon blinked, offended. You're abusing me in your sleep. She didn't care. She just burrowed deeper. He chuckled, leaning down to press soft kisses along her jaw, trailing to her neck, her breathing softened, body melting into his touch. After a moment, he slipped out of bed, freshened up, and padded to the kitchen. 20 minutes later, he returned with a tray full of food, setting it on the table. Then he leaned in and brushed her hair away again, kissing her cheek. Baby, wake up. I made breakfast. He nuzzled her cheek, brushing his nose against hers. She hummed sleepily, his nose trailed down to her jaw, then to her neck, and pressed slow, soft kisses along her warm skin. Wine stirred, fingers reaching back and tangling lazily into his hair. Her voice was small and sleepy. What are you doing? He kissed her shoulder. Good morning, wife. She turned her head slightly, smiling shyly as he kissed her lips. Good morning. He grinned. You sleep like the dead. Must be because of last night. Wine's face turned fire red. She glared. Shut up. Then burst into laughter and kissed her forehead. Go wash up. I'll feed you. You should. I'm the queen here. And I'm your slave. She smiled. Theon leaned in and kissed her lips again, smiling into the kiss. Blushing, giggling, Wine slipped into the washroom. When she returned after a while, her damp face glowing, she plopped onto the bed. Theon dramatically cleared his throat and lifted the tray. Breakfast for her highness. About time. They started eating, except it wasn't eating, it was chaos. He tried feeding her. She stood by, he glared. She stuck her tongue out. He flicked her forehead. She kicked his leg. They laughed like fools. After finishing, Theon snatched the tray with princely pride. I'll clean you, admire yourself. I always do. She walked to the dressing mirror, smiling widely at her reflection. She was glowing, absolutely glowing. She began blow-drying her hair when Theon walked back in. He paused behind her, then he wrapped his arms around her waist from behind, burying his face into her neck. Wine giggled softly. Theon, I'm doing my makeup. He ignored her completely, kissing her neck, tracing slow wet kisses along her skin. You smell too good. How am I supposed to behave? Her blush climbed from her neck to her ears. You're distracting me. He kissed her shoulder. Exactly. She turned around in his arms, looping hers around his neck. You're impossible. You married me. I must be insane. He laughed and she grinned, then leaned up and kissed him. The kiss grew deeper instantly, familiar hunger flaring, his hands sliding to her wrist. She tugged at his shirt, his lips trailing warmly along her jaw. They broke apart breathless. Wine whispered, someone's at the door. Then tightened his hold and whispered huskily, let them wait. He kissed her again. Both jolted, then groaned loudly. Whoever that is better be dying. Wine dissolved into giggles. They walked out together and froze their mothers. Mrs. King was nagging already. Mrs. Lee started fussing the second she saw Wine. Wine bowed politely, trying to hide her flushed face. Theon, however, had zero shame. You know, people shouldn't interrupt newlyweds. Wine slapped his arm, mortified. Both mothers cleared their throats, embarrassed. Theon flashed Wine a wicked grin before casually leaning and kissing her lips right in front of them. Said, I'll get drinks. Wine glared daggers at him while he winked. Mrs. Kim and Mrs. Lee were chatting calmly, nicely, complimenting each other's recipes. Wine whispered, did the hell freeze over? Then shrugged slowly. Probably. Their eyes met and they both burst into soft giggles. Then leaned down, cupped her cheek, and pressed a slow kissing kiss to her lips, whispering against her mouth, I like this version of married life. Wine smiled into his kiss. Me too. Time skip. Days melted into weeks and somehow loving Theon became both the easiest and the hardest thing Wine had ever done. Easy because he worshipped her with every breath he took. Hard because his love came with overwhelming affection, dramatic possessiveness, and endless need to touch her. Theon always woke first. Every morning without fail he would find Wine tucked neatly in his arms, her cheek against his chest, her fingers curled into his shirt, and every morning without fail he would trace her face with his knuckle, slow, reverent, like she was something holy. He kissed her forehead, her cheek, the corner of her lips, and whispered softly against her skin, "My mornings don't start until you open your eyes." When half asleep and grumpy, he would mumble, "Stop staring, it's creepy." But she always pulled him closer, always tucked herself deeper into his warmth, and always kissed him back, slow and sleepy, until he smiled into her mouth. He would brush her hair back, kiss her temple, and breathe, "You're my whole world." In the mornings, cooking was impossible. Graham never let her complete a single task without clinging to her from behind, chin on her shoulder, arms around her waist. Wine stirred the eggs and sighed playfully, "If you keep distracting me, we'll have burnt eggs." He only grinned, tightening his arms around her waist and nuzzling her neck. "Then we'll eat burnt eggs. It's seasoned with love." She rolled her eyes, but her smile was too soft to hide. Every day whenever Graham had to leave for the office, he turned into the world's clingiest man, right? When he was supposed to grab his keys, he would grab her instead, pulling her into his arms, kissing her neck, her cheek, her lips, anywhere he could reach. Wine pushed at his chest, breathless. "You'll be late." He kissed her again deeper. "Then I'll be late with you in my arms." She would sweat him. He would grin. They would kiss again anyway. Weekends were sacred. Matching pajamas, blankets thrown everywhere, books and tangled legs on the couch. Sometimes he strummed his guitar softly while she painted beside him. Whenever a fleck of paint landed on her cheek, he would lean in and wipe it away with his thumb, then softly lovingly say, "Everything you touch becomes beautiful." Wine blushed and flicked paint at his shirt, then looked down at the splatter and smirked, "No, it's art." On movie nights, when an actor on the screen smiled and Wine giggled and tightened his arm around her waist, "That life is mine," he muttered. She smirked, "You're jealous again." He didn't deny it. "Can't help it. You're my weakness." Her hand gently cupped his face, her voice a whisper against his lips, "And you're my peace." They kissed until the movie became the background sound. Nathan sat with his laptop, typing furiously. Wine was curled on his lap like she belonged there because she did. Bored, she played with the buttons of his shirt. One by one, she started undoing them. Came froze. Wine. He warned her voice already low, but she ignored it. She ignored it, leaning in, kissing his cheek, his jaw, the corner of his mouth. Her fingers slid over his bare chest, slow and teasing. Then her lips found his neck, warm, soft, lingering. She pressed a kiss to his Adam's apple, feeling the way he swallowed hard beneath her mouth. Sam groaned, shutting the laptop with one hand. Then he threw it somewhere. He didn't care, grabbing her wrist and pulling her impossibly close to his voice husky. "You're doing this on purpose." She grinned, straddling him properly now, arms around his neck. Maybe. He cleaned her mouth, instantly kissing her like he had been starving for days. Her fingers tangled in his hair, his hands gripped her waist, pulling her tight against him. They kissed until their breaths came uneven, until their hair was ruined and their clothes wrinkled, until they pulled away only to smile breathlessly at each other. Then pressed a long, warm kiss to her forehead, whispering against her skin, "I love you." Her heart fluttered, her voice was soft, "I love you more." He wrapped his arms around her and held her against his chest, his chin resting on her head. Then softly, like a memory that still made his heart race, he spoke, "Do you remember the rain night I climbed through your window?" Wine giggled, saying, "No, you stuck with me legally." He laughed, kissing her temple, gladly forever. His fingers found her hand and traced her wedding ring over and over, almost absent-mindedly, almost like he still couldn't believe she was real. His voice dropped into a fragile softness. "Sometimes I still can't believe you choose me despite everything." Wine cupped his face gently, turning him so he looked at her. "Saying you didn't give me a chance." Her thumb brushed his cheek. "You loved me too hard to ever let go." His eyes softened and he pulled her to his chest again, her head resting over his heart. "Then I'll keep loving you this way, too hard, too much, forever." They stayed like that, no words, no rust, just heartbeats, warmth, and the kind of quiet that felt like home. Every fight, every tear, every storm that white had led to this peace, to this love, to each other.